It is time to do some sculpting on our grumpy frog to make it feel more alive. This video is part of the Starting Simple series and it's a continuation of part 1, so if you haven't watched it, I recommend you do that first so you can see my process for blocking out this character. With this out of the way, let's get to it. Hello everyone, I'm Nemesis from Ngo85. Welcome to my channel. In part 2 of the making of Grumpy Frog, we will merge all the parts we put in place during the blockout phase. We will sculpt the objects to achieve a better shape and improve the connections between the parts for a smoother transition. I will be doing some painting, but this will not be covered in depth since we will focus more on this part of the process in part 3 of this video series. Knowing this, let's get to work. Time to do a bit of sculpting now that our blockout is completed and we dedicated some time to making it right. This part should be more fun. The first thing I like to do is to rename the file. In this case, since I will begin sculpting, I will save it like that. As I said in part 1, I like to save different files such as blockouts, sculpting, painting, etc. Before we begin, I would like to cover a bit about the Remesh option since this is what we will use. I will activate the screencast keys so you can see what I'm pressing, but I will always try to call out loud which keys I'm using. To better explain, with Shift A I will add a sphere, and by pressing the / key I can focus on this object only, and then I head back to sculpt mode. To demonstrate how the Remesh works, I go to the viewport display and check the box for wireframe in the object properties. You can find the Remesh option on the top, or you can navigate to the tool menu and scroll down and you will find it down here as well. You will also find the Remesh option within the data menu under Remesh. What the Remesh does? In basic terms, Remesh will recalculate the polygons and add or remove these based on the settings used. We normally use it to increase the number of polygons according to our needs. To show you how it works, I will switch to the snake hook brush and pull the mesh. As I pull, you can see how the mesh begins to stretch, and we see how in the middle we have more points to work with compared to this area, so in the stretch area we lose some of the resolution. Let's go to Remesh and click on the button with the same name. Now we have more resolution which has been applied evenly across the mesh, so we can pull even further. We can see that the resolution is lost again, so we can return to the Remesh menu and adjust the voxel size. The lower the number, the more polygons you will get, meaning more resolution. Now I have more polygons to work with. The mesh is too stretched, then I remesh. The other way to access the Remesh option, and I think you should use it, is by pressing R. This will bring a visual grid which, when moving the mouse, will display the number of polygons to be applied. To confirm, click with the left mouse button and with Ctrl R the Remesh will be applied. I can now pull again, and when losing the resolution, I press R, pick a number, and then with Ctrl R I apply it, and we get more resolution to work with. When you begin to use this option, you will find yourself abusing it and wondering when you should use it. My advice is to keep it as low as possible when working on the first stages of the model, because when you have a lower number of polygons, controlling the mesh will be easier. Another rule you should remember is to increase the number of polygons to the amount of details you plan to apply. For instance, if you are in the stage of shaping the parts of a face, you want to keep the resolution low for control. But when you are past this phase and want to add wrinkles, for example, you can increase your resolution. The last piece of advice that I can give you is to use it in small steps. Do not try to jump from one number to the next if these are too far apart from each other, unless you understand that it is not possible to move forward having the current number of polygons. With this out of the way, let's delete this object and press the / to bring back the objects to begin sculpting. I want to begin working with the eyes, so I will select them and press the Tab key to go to Sculpt mode using the Mesh Machine Pie menu. To focus on one area of the mesh, I will use the mask brush found in the tool panel, but if you watch part 1 of this video series, you know I will be using the Sculpt plus Paint add-on. Pressing F, I decrease the size and start to mask the part of the eye I'm planning to work on. I check from a different angle to continue masking. The mask is not the cleanest, and this is due to the low number of polygons we currently have. With Ctrl I, we can invert, but I will use the add-on for this. I switch to the clay strip brush. By default, this one will add, but by holding Ctrl I can remove so we can carve the eye sockets. This mesh is already a candidate for a remesh, but I will hold this until I'm happy with the overall shape. In part 1, I saved a duplicate of this object to be used as the eyes, so I will unhide this one. This will help me to shape the outer part of the eye better. The eyeball is sticking out on this part, so let's go to object mode. We can now move it by pressing G followed by Y to move it along this axis. Back in Sculpt mode, I position the cursor over the object and press Alt Q to switch so I can continue working on this one. With the grab brush, I begin adjusting the shape. The mask is on the way, so I will remove it by pressing Alt M and I can continue. As you can see, I'm taking my time before remeshing. Remember to look at your model from all angles to ensure it looks good from everywhere. I come to the front view to continue adjusting according to the reference. It's time to remesh this object since there are areas that I want to manipulate but we don't have enough vertices. With Ctrl R, I will remesh according to the number I have in the remesh menu, but this one is too low, so let's undo this. I will press R to show the grid and reduce the number. When the object is small, you will need to reduce your number even more to add more resolution. For example, when working with things like fingers, because the object is too small, to get a good resolution you will need to decrease the number more compared to bigger shapes. With more vertices, I can continue shaping my object. In the reference, the top of the eyes is straight, so I'm trying to replicate that. I keep rotating and working in other areas. I smooth holding shift. Be careful so you don't destroy what you already have. I push this part a bit more. It's looking good, but I'm not 100% sure with this part, so with the clay strips I will carve more. I remesh again to get more resolution and smooth the object with shift. Let's switch to the grab brush because I see that this part goes up. I will tweak the top of the eyelids since the outer corner is meant to be lower than the one closer to the nose. Here, I'm trying to keep the curvature. I like where it's going, so with Alt Q, I will start working on the body. It is good not to invest all your time in one part of your model. Before I remesh, I see this gap here, but it seems to come from the back. What I will do is to split the window by dragging from the corner. Then I can switch to the back view and pull while looking at the other window until it matches the reference. Now we have this part like the one in the image. I will hide the reference to see how it looks. I think it looks good and we can better see the changes we made to the back. Let's unhide the image and remesh the body. I quickly soften the object holding Shift. Let's tweak this part a bit. I can now carve the nostrils. I will use a draw sharp brush to do this. They are being marked and will look better after the resolution is increased. Smoothing with Shift. I switch to start working on the arms. With the grab brush, I will change the shape of it. With R, I will decrease my number and Ctrl R to apply the remesh and soften the area. The arms and model itself do not have a lot of details, so I can leave it as it is and move to the next part. I know I want to make the wrist smaller. I'm trying to keep a nice flow of the curve. It looks good, so I will increase the resolution. With Alt Q, I begin working on the legs. Not many changes to be done, let's work on the foot. It is already stretched, so I will remesh it then soften the shape. It is too thin in here. I will hide the floor for visibility and then with the clay strip brush I will begin adding more mesh to work with. I add a bit more to the heels. Holding Ctrl and removing the symmetry, I carve some of the inner parts of the foot. Always working from all sides. I did not increase the resolution to this part of the leg, so let's do it now. In a similar way, I work on the hand, starting by remeshing the object and smoothing right after. Still with the clay strips, I will carve out some of the mesh. Adding more mesh to the connection from the thumb to the palm. I'm looking at my hand while doing this. It is not a realistic character, but using real-life examples like your hands is beneficial for this type of work. With the grab brush, let's move this part up a bit. I want to ensure that this is working well with the floor. This is good. Hide the floor again and we'll be adding more mesh to the hands. I will be working on the fingers, but because they are small, I need to add more resolution to work on them properly. With the clay strips, I will add more mesh where it connects, similar to the knuckles. With the draw sharp, I mark the area where the finger is supposed to bend. I want to make the bottom of the tip more round, so I added more mesh with the clay strips. I will make more adjustments when merging the parts together. For now, with the grab brush, I will make some corrections. I mark this area again, but instead of the draw sharp, I will use the crease brush, which is similar, but it also pinches the mesh, making it cleaner. I continue tweaking here and there. We have to be efficient. I will take this finger and duplicate with Shift D and use the other ones as a placement reference, and then I can delete them. We have saved some time by doing this, so I can go back to Sculpt mode and begin working on all the fingers. I will make some minor changes, so it is easier later when I merge all the parts together. I keep removing with the clay strips brush while holding Control. I definitely have to work more on the eyes since they are bothering me already. With the grab brush, I will work on keeping a nice curve along the bottom of the eye. The top needs to be more straight. I keep looking at the window on the left when making these changes, since the image is from the front view and is on top of the reference. From this angle, I can see that I have some adjustments to make. Let's bring this in a bit more. Time to remesh, and holding Shift, I soften the object. I unhide the floor to see how all look together. All the parts are looking good. Let's work on this part. But the message below lets me know that the scale has not been applied, so let's do that. The only thing I want to do on this one is to make the bottom a bit wider. As you can see, I cannot move it, and this is because I do not have enough vertices to work on. So let's remesh this first, then I can start working on the shape of the stem. Let me quickly make some minor adjustments to the eyes. I like this better, so I can now go back to the body and push in between the eyes a bit more. Continue switching and going back to refine your model from different angles. I will close the left window for now, as I think I do not need it anymore. I will merge the parts, Back in the object mode, I will save the model, but what I like to do is to save it as it is first, then save a new one and call it merged in case I have to go back to the previous unmerged version. To merge all the parts with the selection tool, I hold Shift and box select the body parts, making sure I'm not selecting the floor. I go around and check, and I'm sure I don't want the eyes to be merged with the rest, so I will deselect and hide them and can select the parts once again. The next thing you want to do when ready to merge is to apply any active modifier. With Ctrl A, I click on Visual Geometry to mesh, but as we can see, this one is not active. To make it work, by holding Shift, I click on one of the parts to make it active, then I can press Ctrl A again, and the option is enabled, and when clicked, all the modifiers will be applied. I join all the parts pressing Ctrl J. Now as you can see, for the active color, this is one mesh. To complete merging the objects, we go to Sculpt mode and remesh it. If you noticed, I remeshed some parts in which I did not do much, and the reason for this is that to avoid issues, it's better to have the objects somewhat similar in terms of density to avoid stretching or losing a lot of details when remeshing. I also do this to avoid proximity issues. This happens when you have objects next to each other like the fingers, but they are not meant to be stuck together. Okay, so let's add a very low remesh to have a good transition between the objects. I like to do a general smoothing first, so I grab the mesh filter and make sure that the option is set to smooth. From there, I just have to click and hold while dragging to start smoothing the object. I will do this just a touch to continue doing a manual smoothing holding Shift. I do it slightly in this area since I don't have a lot of density compared to other parts of the model. After smoothing all the areas of the model, we can now work on the connections between the different parts. To work on the connections, I use a clay strip brush to add mesh and smooth it to better integrate the parts. Let's first reduce the strength with Shift F. I will do it in the add-on. So I begin adding ever so slightly and softening while holding Shift. I smooth any part that I might have missed. Since there is more resolution, I can take the Draw Sharp to refine the nostrils. When I switch to the front view, I can see that something is not right with the symmetry. This happens a lot when remeshing because the calculation is not precisely mirrored, so you will end up sometimes with this type of issues. To correct this, we have a Symmetrize option in the Symmetry panel. Since we decided to work on the right side, I want to symmetrize from this side over to the left one. Looking at the gizmo, I need to transfer from positive X to negative X. It's already like this by default. So I click on Symmetrize and give it some time. As you can see, this is now correct. I continue with the transitions under the eyes, using the clay strips brush. We do the same to the arms. In areas like this, I'm not adding any mesh because they are meant to be separate, so I just smooth holding Shift. The same happens to the legs. I only smooth without adding any more mesh with the clay strips. With the crease brush, I will make this area more pronounced. This one is a bit cleaner compared to the Draw Sharp brush. I need to smooth this area. I hide the floor to work on the bottom of the character. Time to work on the hands, and I can improve the connections with the clay strips and make a better transition. This process is the same. I add mesh and then soft this one with light strokes. Be careful with the smooth brush, as it may remove all the work you have done. I will pick the smooth brush to avoid this and reduce the strength. This is better. Now I can continue with the clay strips and the fingers. Already looking better. I'm now switching to the draw brush, and I want to use it to make some tendons as part of the hands details. I smooth them to make them less sharp. With the crease brush, I work the edges of the tendons. I will soften them more because I think I made them too pronounced. Let's move to the bottom and continue with the same idea of using the clay strips and smoothing the area to have a better transition. I like how it's looking so far. In the same manner, I will begin adjusting the connection of the toes with the rest of the foot. I don't want the foot to be super flat, so I'm adding this part. Looking at my foot, I'm trying to replicate what I see by carving out some of the mesh in this area. I add some more to the heels and the rest of the foot. I want to make the bottom of the toes more bulge, similar to the fingers. To do this and make it a bit different, I will use the inflate brush. With the round motion, I start to inflate the tip of the toe. Let's do the same to the other toes. Always check the motor from different angles. Back with the clay strips, I add more mesh to this area since I don't want it to be flat. I just noticed that the screencast keys were turned off. Unfortunately, I can't rely on this add-on, but since I got it for free, I should not be complaining. With the crease, I will mark the crevices. The top of the toes are very sharp, so I will hold shift and smooth them. Nothing new here, I'm working on the connections like I did for the hands. With the drop brush, but this time I will make it smaller, I will make the tendons, then I smooth them. Now we can shift our focus to the eyes. I know this part will not be visible, but still I try to even this area with a smooth brush. With the scrape brush, I can flatten areas of the model. I like to come to this area and make it flat. I do the same to the bottom part. The next thing I would like to do is to improve the edges by making them sharper. From the front view, I will take the crease brush. This can also be done with the Draw Sharp brush. With the brush selected, I will go to the stroke menu and click on Stabilize Stroke. What this does is giving me this sort of string that I pull while making the stroke more stable. So going around the edges of the eyelids, I hold Ctrl to invert the crease brush and I can start sharpening the area. I'll do the same to the bottom. I will smooth the sides a bit more. In the tool area, we have this brush called Multiplane Scrape. By Blender's definition, it scrapes the mesh with two angle planes simultaneously, creating a sharp edge between them. This is useful for creating and polishing hard surface objects. When you pass over an edge, it will sharpen this one nicely and scrape what's next to the edge. I will reduce the strength and do this again. I checked the overall shape and it's not too bad. Our model is pretty much done. I know I still have to work on the petals, but first I think I want to quickly do some work on the eyes. With the crease brush, I will mark the line under the eyelids with reduced strength and without the stabilized stroke. Too strong, so let's go back and reduce the strength a bit more. I don't like how much the area around the crease is affected, so I will undo this and try with the Draw Sharp instead. This is better. As usual, I will make it softer. I will do the same for the top, but for this one I will be using the stabilized stroke, and I will smooth the area. Looking good, and I can work on smoothing other areas of the model. Let's bring back the image to check how it looks. I will increase the opacity and slowly reduce it to see how well I have done so far. I see the top eyelid of my model not matching, so in Sculpt mode with the grab brush I will correct this and try to make it as even as possible. That's good for me. To better see the likeness of our character, I have decided to paint the eyes. The third part of this video series will be covered painting more in depth, and you can also watch this video I made about painting in Sculpt mode. With the eye selected, I will press Ctrl 3 to add a subdivision modifier with 3 levels, and I will proceed to apply it. I do this because the paint is applied on the vertex, and you will need a lot of vertices to make the paint look smoother. I apply the scale to avoid any issues and will speed up this part. Good, I have something I can work with. Now I will tweak the eyelids a bit more. Now is the time to add the eyebrows. Well, they're more like eyelashes, but I will call them eyebrows for the rest of the tutorial. In object mode with Shift A, I add a plane. Then rotate with R, pressing X to do it along the X axis, followed by 90 to do a 90 degrees. With S, I will make it smaller and move it to the top of the eye. The next thing I do is to go to the object properties, and under the viewport display, I check the box for in front. Now it doesn't matter where I move it, it always be displayed on top of the other objects. Since I always use this option, I already have it saved in the Pie Menu Editor add-on. The next thing I will do is to turn on snapping. Here I make sure that it is on face, the snap base is on closest, and I check the box to align rotation to target. With this ready, let's move to edit mode. In vertex mode, I begin aligning the vertices on top of the object, moving them by pressing G. To extend it, I select the last 2 vertices and press E to extrude. The align rotation option is messing up a bit, so I will turn it off. I continue extruding the plane until I reach the eyebrow's end. I can now begin adjusting the shape of the brows. I bring the last 2 vertices closer together. Back in object mode, the next step is to add some thickness and smooth the shape. So first, I will press Ctrl 2 to add 2 levels of subdivision. Then I go to the modifiers and add a solidify modifier. Change the view to see what I'm doing and start playing with the thickness. I always like to switch the position of the modifiers to see how it looks, but I think that as it is, it should be fine. I like the way it looks. In edge selection mode with Ctrl R, I will add a loop to make the edges of the eyebrow sharper, but first I need to switch off snapping. In vertex mode, I take the vertices at the beginning to make the brow more narrow in this area. Time to add a mirror, and if you remember from part 1, I have a hidden empty object that I always use as a target. I will add some color to the object, but first I need to apply the modifiers. I want to apply them but leave the mirror. We will apply them one by one, but again I wanted to show you why it's good to use add-ons, since I already have in the pie menu an option to apply all the modifiers except for the mirror. Anyway, we continue the vanilla way. In Sculpt mode, I proceed to paint the eyebrows. With Alt Q, I change the mesh, and with the grab brush I begin tweaking the object. I can also switch to the eyebrow and move it into a better position. In the reference, the end seems to come out slightly, so I will do that. Let's now work on the mouth. I will be using the draw sharp as I want to mark the mouth. Because it will be hard to get this curvature, I will approach this differently using the curve stroke method. In the stroke menu, I will select curve. With this, I can draw a curve and apply the brush stroke based on that. Holding Ctrl and right click, I can add a point. And then I mark another point the same way, but I hold the right click and start dragging to form the curve. Once this is done, I can press enter to apply the stroke. I bring back the reference to make the stroke match. I begin setting my curve. I hide the image, then press enter several times to mark the mouth area. To remove the curve, I press A to select all followed by delete. I would like to mark this part with color as well, so I will mask the area of the mouth to apply the color. I'm using the stabilize stroke while masking. Now I can invert the mask. You can do this with Ctrl I, and with the color filter tool set to fill, I can color this. I don't like how it came out, so I will return to fix it. This is better. I may later add some mesh similar to what we did with the eyebrows to make something that resembles the lips. Let's begin working on the flower part. In object mode, I select all the petals by clicking on them while holding shift, then press the / key to hide the rest of the model. I want the petals to have a middle point where all of them are attached. So with Shift A, I will add a UV sphere, scale it and move it in place. I can now fix how they connect, so let's head to edit mode. Alt Z for X-ray mode. Now I can select the vertices and scale them to connect better with the sphere in the middle. I add a new loop with Ctrl R so I can improve the shape of the petal. Same as in Sculpt mode, you can switch without leaving the edit mode if you press Alt Q over another mesh. I will repeat the same process for the rest of the petals. Okay, I like how it looks. I do not worry much about how it is in this area since we will not look at the model from the bottom. I will also make some more adjustments in Sculpt mode. With the /, I will bring back the rest of the model to check how it looks. I will make the sphere smaller with S and move it up. That's good. Let's unhide the reference since we will deform the petals so they look more alive. I select the first one and press R, then X to rotate along this axis. I'll do the same with the ones on the side and continue with the rest of the petals. Looking good. So what I will do now is to apply the modifiers and in Sculpt mode start shaping the petals to look more like in the reference. The same process will be done with the rest of the petals so we can speed up this part. I know I'm not following the exact shape, but this is because we must remember that the angle of the reference is different than the one the model has. I also like this a bit more for the 3D version of the character. This is our complete model. Now I save the merge version again and create a new file for the painting, which we will do in the next video. And that's it guys for this video. If you enjoyed the content, please consider to like, share and subscribe. And if you have any suggestions to improve the channel, please let me know down below in the comment section. Thank you for watching and see you soon.